and welcome to the August Lunchtime Chat with Sandy. I am going to be talking about Parkinson's and traveling, but just before I do that today, I was wondering if it's okay if I just spend a minute to give you a bit more information about last time's session, which was on dental care and Parkinson's. I wanted to draw your attention to the College of Dental Hygienists of Ontario, their website, which has an excellent section on Parkinson's. It talks a lot about the description of Parkinson's, including the signs and symptoms, as well as practical tips for the hygienists, as well as yourselves, that would assist you to get the most out of your dental appointments. If you can't find the website, it's College of Dentists or Dental Hygienists of Ontario. Please don't hesitate to give me a call, 416-227-3375, or for those of you who are on long distance at 1-800-565-3000, extension 3375, or you could send me an email. My email address is my name, Sandy, S-A-N-D-I-E, .jones, J-O-N-E-S, at Parkinson, Parkinson.ca. And I'd be happy to send you a copy of what I think is just an excellent resource for people with Parkinson's and their families to improve your experience at the dentist, and also to help dental hygienists understand you as well. Okay, on for today's lunchtime chat on Parkinson's and traveling. Speaking from my personal experience, as well as the experiences that I have heard from others, travel is an enriching experience, and there is no reason why people with Parkinson's cannot travel. Having said that, however, there are checks and balances that need to be addressed when one has any chronic condition, such as arthritis, diabetes, heart disease, etc. And Parkinson's is certainly no exception to that rule. Gone are the days when we were footloose and fancy-free, when we could throw a few things in a backpack, hop on a plane, and travel throughout Europe, stopping once in a while to work for a few weeks in order to be able to pay for our food and a room in a hostel in order to see the world. Well, we may not be very fancy now, and footloose is certainly not a word one associates with having Parkinson's, but with careful planning, traveling is definitely doable and not something that needs to be scratched off your bucket list. There are a few guides and a few topics that I will be covering today, so just bear with me, as not everything will apply to everyone, but hopefully there will be some new information here today that even you seasoned travelers might not be aware of. My hope is that although you may face challenges while traveling due to changing mobility and energy levels, as well as concerns relating to medication, my talk today can help you plan for a safe and memorable travel experience. Don't let Parkinson's hold you back from the trip of your dreams. Also, keep in mind that many of the things I mentioned today pertain to anyone who is traveling, not just those with Parkinson's. So here goes. First, make a detailed list, and I do accentuate the words detailed list, of what you need to take well in advance. Note I said a detailed list of what you need to take well in advance. This will accomplish several things, such as ensuring that you haven't forgotten anything in order to avoid landing in a foreign country and having to scramble to look for a store that might carry what you're looking for. Also, it will ensure that you take only the items that you really need in order to cut down on the amount of luggage you require. Starting your list well in advance also gives you the opportunity to delete as well as add things rather than worrying about, I wonder what I forgot as you're about to get on the plane, or having your spouse say, did you really need to bring the kitchen sink? The second important point is to be realistic about your limitations and don't schedule either more activities or more strenuous activities than you can enjoy. In other words, plan a trip that both interests you as well as suits you. Many people choose cruising as a way of getting where you want to go, while others use companies such as Eldertech Travel, and many of you continue as well to plan your own trips. There is no right or wrong way to do this. However you choose to travel or to handle your travel is completely up to you. But the first question you need to be asking yourselves is, how physically demanding is this trip? I know from personal experience that some companies rate the physical demand of their shore excursions on a degree scale from easy to difficult. Check these out very carefully ahead of time to the very best of your ability, as even the ones marked easy may be easy for some, but are not necessarily easy for people with Parkinson's. You don't want to find yourself on a walking tour up the side of a mountain when you thought you were signing up for a leisurely walk on a very short hillside. During your trip, ensure that you build in plenty of time to get organized and ready for the next day's activities without having to rush as soon as you get up in the morning, as that will start your day off on the wrong foot even before you get out the door. Make sure your itinerary has room for flexibility when possible, so that if you are having an off day, you can take the day off without feeling pressured to be in any one place at a specific time. I realize that this is not always possible, of course, particularly if you are traveling with a company that has a set itinerary, but try to have some control over your schedule. Remember, it is called a holiday for a reason, not a working trip. So now for a discussion about frequently asked questions. One of the most frequently asked questions is, how can I manage my medications? Make any medication adjustments well before starting out, i.e., I mean well before, at least 4 to 6 months in advance of your travel date. This is very important, as not only will it give your system time to adjust to the change in the amount or frequency of the medication that's being made, or even to adjust to a new medication that's being introduced, but many travel insurance policies will not provide coverage unless you are stable for a defined period of time, and will also be voided if you have had any change in your medication within the last 3 months before your departure date. So it's very important that you make sure that any medication adjustments are made well in advance of your departure date. Please be sure to read your travel insurance policy, and whatever you do, read the fine print. Your dream of a lifetime could quickly turn into your biggest nightmare if you suddenly get a huge bill for thousands of dollars after you get home because you didn't read your policy carefully enough and required medical treatment while you were away. I will discuss more about travel insurance a little later in this presentation today. Now for some medication tips. Never start new medications or attempt to alter dosages while you are on vacation. Secondly, bring extra medication and an easy-to-read list of your medications, including the timing of when you take them. Third, always carry all your medication with you. Never put it in your checked luggage, or in the event that your luggage gets lost in transit, you may make sure that you have your medication with you so that it doesn't get lost too. Split your medications up so that both you and your travel companion each carry half, so that if you do by any chance lose them while you're away, you're not in an emergency situation, and it will give you an opportunity to have your prescription refilled. Check with your pharmacist regarding any possible interactions you may have with your regular medications and those you might need for things like travel sickness or antibiotics while you are away. For those individuals with only a few or no motor fluctuations, I'm talking about the ons and offs, or times when your medications are working or not. So for those of you who do not have these issues with this, please simply take your medication using the time of your current time zone. For example, flights from Canada to Europe tend to leave in the late afternoon or evening. So if you are taking such a flight, follow your usual schedule at home that day, and then resume your medication schedule using the new time upon arrival at your destination. For those of you who have definite on and off periods, and if your level of functioning is very closely linked to the precision of your medication timing, you may need to take more or less medication on your day of travel to a distant time zone, depending on the direction of your travel, of course. Example, if your destination time zone is ahead or behind us. England, for example, is 5 hours ahead of us, and British Columbia is 3 hours behind us. I know that this is stating the obvious, but you need to adjust your medication so that you can function when you need to be able to be on at your arrival at your destination, for example, so that you can deplane as smoothly as possible. Also, ask your doctor if you could chew your Cinemet and take it with a carbonated drink in case you get stuck and simply can't move. This tip might also come in very handy if you have an off period while you are waiting in customs line or any other place on your trip. So it will help you to be prepared to move when the crowd is moving. I hope by now you're getting the theme here. Plan ahead. So on with some tips for traveling as it relates to your medications. Any trip where you will have a high humidity environment needs to be very well planned for, as you need to pack your medications in plastic bags or use those little silica gel packs to absorb the extra moisture. I have heard several stories over the years from individuals whose medications literally disintegrated in the Amazon, for example. Just as recently as yesterday, I downloaded a piece from the internet called Dangers of Medications Amid Extreme Heat. This was an article that was written in Houston, and it talks specifically about seniors people with chronic conditions that take medications that can have dangerous outcomes in the summer sun, and particularly a concern as temperatures skyrocket. They specifically cited people with Parkinson's, heart medications, as well as medications for diabetes. And one of the quotes is, people who have had Parkinson's disease or maybe have had a stroke and maybe don't swallow quite as well as they used to won't be able to perhaps keep up with the fluid requirement that will also be increased. A lot of these medications, such as some blood pressure medications, may also decrease your ability to sweat. So staying hydrated is extremely important. Again, I could share this very recently written article that was just written this week in the Houston newspaper with you, if you would like a copy of this one as well. So again, in terms of hydration, make sure you always carry a water bottle with you for taking your medications and staying hydrated, as obviously there are going to be places where water is not even safe to drink or may not be easily accessible to you. I have often been asked, if something happens to my pills while I'm away, for example, if I do lose them or if they get destroyed for any reason and I run out of anti-Parkinson medications, will they be available in other countries? The answer is yes, especially forms of levodopa in particular, but they may be sold under different trade names. As a result, it is very important to take a list of both the chemical and generic names of the drugs you are taking that you can show to a local doctor and pharmacist that will look at your list and be able to prescribe things for you, as they should be able to supply the equivalent medication, albeit possibly by a different name. Again, taking your medications, your vitamins, any supplements in the original bottle for easy identification is extremely important. I have already mentioned the importance of seeing your doctor before you depart, and now I want to go over some other reasons why this is so important, things that you may have not considered previously. Ask your doctor for a letter explaining that you have Parkinson's and any other conditions you may have, if appropriate. The letter should include a list of your medications and any potential complications that could arise, as well as your doctor's phone number. Just in case any questions arise also from border officials because of the amounts of the pills that you may be carrying. They may question, why do you need to take such copious amounts of medications? Because they won't understand how complicated Parkinson's is and how important it is for you to take several medications throughout the day. The list of medications should also include the number of pills you take each day and the quantity that you require for a long trip. Also, ask your doctor if he or she knows the name of a doctor in the area where you are traveling in case of emergency. Often doctors have colleagues in various places in various countries, and those names may come in handy when you're traveling should you need coverage from another doctor. Let your doctor's office know when and where you are traveling to give them a heads up, just in case they do get a call. I know that many of you do go to the same place every winter, and if possible, you need to provide your doctor's office with the phone number of a local pharmacy at your destination. Again, just in case you require a refill or anything happens to your medications or your drugs get either lost or damaged. Be sure also to take your Parkinson's Society Central and Northern Ontario medication card with you as it contains a list of your medications, emergency contact information, as well as a brief description of Parkinson's that you can give to people should they not understand Parkinson's. If you don't have a Parkinson's Society medication card, again, give me a call. I'd be happy to send out one to you in the mail. At the beginning of my talk today, I said that it is important to be realistic about your limitations when planning your vacation, and don't schedule more activities than you can enjoy. When planning your agenda, schedule at least 1 or 2 days of rest and relaxation periodically. Also take naps as needed, even though this is not something you are used to needing when you are at home. Taking a vacation from your vacation may sound like a bit of a strange thing to say, but traveling can be exhausting, given all the extra activities, change of time zones, change of eating habits, change of beds, etc. It's only natural to want to try and do as much as possible when you're away, but overdoing it will create frustration and the possibility of being down for a count the next day. You have all made adjustment and accommodation to your lives with Parkinson's. Why should traveling with Parkinson's be any different? You all know that overdoing it usually makes Parkinson's symptoms worse, so try very hard not to go there. Accept the fact that you cannot see and do everything, so don't try. Take the time you need to enjoy the things you really want to do and experience what you do see. If it's a struggle to do stuff, you'll all remember the struggle and not the stuff, and that's not the kind of memories you want to hang on to. At the risk of you thinking, oh no, here she goes again, I can't talk about traveling without mentioning the importance of, yes, you guessed it, exercise. Please don't hang up at this point, as I do have a few more tips that you need to know in a few minutes, so just try to bear with me. Regardless of whether you're traveling by train or car, it's very important to stretch your muscles. You can stretch even in crowded places. Stretching really helps to reduce the tightness that you may feel in your legs, your back, and neck if you're sitting too long. Never sit for more than an hour at any one time, and sit for a shorter period if you find that you're getting very stiff and uncomfortable. Stretching also helps to reduce blood pooling in your feet, which can cause leg swelling. And one of the last things you want is not to be able to get your shoes on at the end of your journey. Stretching also helps to reduce the blood pooling, I've just mentioned that, blood pooling in your feet. Sorry, I repeated that. Stretching reduces the stiffness and cramping also very commonly associated with Parkinson's. Caution, stretch slowly. Don't just put your arm out and bring it back, or put your leg out for a second or two and bring it back. Stretch at least 10 seconds for each stretch. Repeat each stretch 3 to 5 times, again for 10 seconds each. Listen to your body and obviously reduce the stretch if you start to feel pain. There's a fact sheet with exercises that are intended to be done while sitting in your seat on a plane. Again, I would be happy to send you one of those fact sheets as well if you wish. If you travel by plane or train, you can walk up and down the aisle at least once an hour. Again, do it more frequently if necessary. Who cares what people think when they see you moving around so much? This is about you, not about them. If you're driving, be sure to pull over, get out, and stretch. The number of times you need to do this has to be determined by you. But again, don't sit in any one position for too long, or you might find that you're stuck in that position for much longer than you'd like to be. Remember also to take big breaths. Breathe in slowly. Hold your breath briefly and breathe out slowly. Drink plenty of water along the way, as dehydration is a common consequence of traveling. Avoid alcohol. It may help you to relax on a plane, but it can also lead to dehydration, dizziness, loss of balance, and sore muscles, especially if you fall asleep in any one position. Make sure that you get the help you need. Don't hesitate to make your needs known. Be specific and clear when describing Parkinson's, as many service providers will not understand the medical terms relating to Parkinson's, and specifically your particular needs. Again, use your Parkinson's Society medication card to help you communicate your challenges, particularly if you're finding difficulty with your speech or your speech is very, very low. Don't hesitate to request wheelchair services or even a golf cart, especially in this day and age, with the huge airports and very, very long walks that are often necessary to get from check-in to customs and then on to the boarding gate. There is no shame in asking for assistance to navigate through airports and train stations. Ask for front seats on planes and buses to avoid crowded aisles and to have maximum legroom. Also, take into account your bathroom needs, as this request might need to be altered if the washrooms are located at the back of the plane, etc. An aisle seat close to the bathroom might be necessary, regardless of where the bathroom is located. So you need to make sure that you are addressing all of your needs when you're asking about your seat location. Packing. This is where you will need your detailed checklist that I mentioned toward the beginning of today's talk. I have a confession to make before I give you some tips about packing, and it comes under the heading, do what I say and not what I do. I am probably the worst person when it comes to packing. Remember, I talked about the spouse that said, did you really have to bring everything but the kitchen sink? Well, I hate to admit it, but those are actually my husband's very words every trip we take. And in spite of my best laid plans, I always bring too much and end up bringing at least a third of everything back without it ever having gotten even near my body. So, if I can ever even take my own advice, here is a list of what I would do and what I strive to achieve. You never know, one day actually I might listen to myself. Don't hold your breath, but you never know. There's always a chance. If you have even ever gone into Tilly and Durable store, you will have seen a display table with a suitcase. Yes, one suitcase that contains all of the clothes that you will need for any trip, be it a month trip, 6-month trip, or even a year. I always look at that display and say, yeah, right, like that's going to happen. That's not ever going to be what my suitcase looks like. However, I digress as usual, so here goes. Step 1 with respect to packing. Get out that handy-dandy detailed checklist. You know, the one I said you need to start several weeks ahead of your trip. The one that is very detailed and contains only the things you really need. This is where the things that are you really need versus what are nice to take comes in handy. Step 2, use the checklist. It's there for a reason. Step 3, pack light. Think of dressing in layers from the inside out, with very lightweight clothes first, and work your way out to using a sweater or a vest, etc. End up with a jacket, preferably lightweight and rainproof. That way you will be prepared for hot and sunny weather as well as cool and rainy weather all at the same time. Step 4, mix and match or color coordinate your clothes, as this will help a lot when it comes to the amount of stuff you need. Drip-dry, crinkle-free clothes will help cut down on any ironing. Whoever talked about ironing on vacation? Yuck. Step 5, a Fiberfill vest is actually very useful. I have one. I can wear it for warmth, but it acts actually as a very light pillow and easily can be carried on in your carry-on luggage. Step 6. This is something that took me a while to get used to, but I pack one all the time now. It's a fanny pack, also a backpack, so that you can have your both hands free. Make sure you wear comfortable shoes for walking or hiking. Remember, safety and comfort come before fashion. Have your photo ID, your passport, your medication, your travel documents, your currency, and credit cards in a very easily accessible compartment. Be sure to have all your contact numbers and addresses, as well as who should be contacted in case of an emergency, where they can be found very easily. Don't forget to have your water bottle and even some light snacks also easily accessible. All of this information, your medical, your medication, must be in your carry-on bag. It's also a good idea to have 2 copies of all your travel documents, one for you and one for the person you are traveling with, just in case something gets lost en route. Be sure to leave your itinerary, and a detailed one preferably, including all of your contact information, with a family member or friends at home, so people will be able to keep track of you and know where you are at any given time. I'm sure many of you have carried a travel dictionary with you so that you can ask for directions to the nearest bathroom or directions to a restaurant. But I think it would be a good idea to also learn to ask for medical assistance, and maybe even how to describe Parkinson's symptoms in the languages of the countries where you will be visiting. I don't think you would need to learn a lot of words, but I think that whatever would replace the word for a tremor, or slowness of movement, or stiffness, or even problems with balance. Hopefully you won't need to use it, but those words might come in very handy, just in case. Travel insurance. You've all heard horror stories on the news about people who have required medical intervention and even hospitalization while they were traveling, only to be confronted with huge medical bills, sometimes totaling thousands of dollars after they get home. We've also heard similar stories from people living with Parkinson's and their families. So if you think when you're looking at those stories on the news, that will never happen to me, think again. To say, make sure you have good travel insurance just doesn't cut it. You may think that you have adequate travel insurance to cover emergencies, but have you actually read the fine print? For example, has the policy asked you, do you have a condition of the central nervous system? Sometimes, or they will just abbreviate that, the CNS. Some people have mistakenly put no, not realizing that the central nervous system includes conditions of the brain and spinal column, and therefore Parkinson's is a condition of the central nervous system. And if you are asked this question, you must be honest and say yes. If you don't do this and require medical attention on your trip, your insurance policy will immediately be null and void, and you will be on the hook for the full amount of the bill, which, as I said, can add up easily to thousands of dollars. Don't misunderstand me. Having a condition like Parkinson's does not mean you cannot get travel insurance. Not reporting it, however, means you won't get any money if you have a problem and try to claim it on your insurance later. This could also potentially affect your ability to make future claims with other travel insurance companies, as it could be construed as insurance fraud. So make sure that you report that you do have Parkinson's. If you check yes to the question, do you have a condition of the central nervous system, there will be one or two other subsequent questions that you need to understand the importance of, as they too have a vital role to play in whether or not your insurance policy will cover you. These are the questions. 1, when did you last see your doctor? And 2, did he or she make any changes to your treatment regime? I know I'm repeating something that I said earlier in this presentation today, but I do think it bears repeating. While these questions may differ slightly from policy to policy, what they are checking to see is if your condition is stable, in the sense that your doctor is not concerned about your fitness to travel. This is very important because typically, if there have been changes to your treatment, i.e., if your medication has been changed, including an increase in dosage or frequency, even of the same medication, within 3 months of your trip, that will likely be construed as a sign that your condition is not stable, and you may not be able to get coverage. I would say that the two things I have just mentioned, not being truthful about your pre-existing condition, coupled with having a medication change 3 months or less from your travel date, are the things that most often get people into a financial nightmare if an emergency occurs while you are away. So the take-home message today about travel insurance is read the fine print, know exactly what is in your policy, and for goodness sakes, be truthful. Lots of snowbirds with Parkinson's are cleared for travel every year and have no problem getting insurance. I am not endorsing the following, but 2 companies I know of that people living with Parkinson's have used quite successfully are, one is called Medipac International Inc. So that is spelled MEDIPAC International Inc. This is a company that has been endorsed and recommended by both the Canadian Snowbirds Association and the Royal Canadian Legion. It's located here in Toronto, and again, I could provide you with more information about this particular company if you would like that. The other company that people have used successfully in the past is British Airways Freedom Travel Insurance Policy. They are represented and handled by travel underwriters in Toronto. I would be happy to provide their phone number as well as their online information. Again, if you would like this information, don't hesitate to let me know. Information for Via Rail. Unfortunately, there is sometimes confusion with some of the customer service representatives at Via, as they may be unfamiliar with the policy. I have actually had to advocate in the past for this, but the process is actually much simpler now than it used to be. Some agencies do have a membership card. However, in order to get a proper membership card, the individual still needs to have a letter from the doctor on file with the agency. So the agency is essentially vouching that they do have a disability sufficient enough to qualify to get a caregiver to travel for free under VIA's outline. It's a bit administratively heavy, and we simply don't have the person power to run this type of program, but I can also give you information about VIA's website with respect to this. So to take advantage of this privilege, the special needs traveler must present for each trip a valid card from a recognized association or institution for persons with disabilities, or a recent letter dated within the last 9 months and signed by a physician. So again, your escort must be older than 12 in order to have that person be able to travel with you for free. Things that you must be, that you would need in order to have this in terms of your own personal needs. You would have to have difficulty with eating by yourself, attending to your personal hygiene needs, in other words, going to the washroom independently, and also if you need any administration of your medication or supervision of the medication, those things would qualify you to have somebody travel with you. There is also a travel document that is to whom it may concern, again signed by a doctor, that must be shown every time when you're purchasing any of your Via Rail tickets. Hang in there, guys. I'm almost done with my Sermon from the Mount for today. Just a few more things that you might find helpful. One is the Canadian Air Transport Security has told us that our medication card, remember, the ones I've referred to a couple of times in this presentation, the Parkinson Society Central and Northern Ontario medication card, that qualifies as documentation to be presented to screening officers just before they begin the screening process. Upon presentation, screening officers will approach screening in a more sensitive and delicate manner, while still adhering to the operating procedures requiring of them. A passenger, person with Parkinson's, and any other passenger who has a document like this with them can request a private search if additional screening or search at customs is required, and or if the passenger is uncomfortable with being screened in public view. Further, to the issue of privacy, protocols stipulate that screening officers must not outwardly disclose or discuss a person's medical condition or any medical documentation in front of other passengers. So there are really good reasons why having one of these cards with you is very important. You can also obtain a disability travel card through Easter Seals, which again is intended for people with disabilities who require the assistance of a support person when traveling. Again, this information is available from us just by asking. Also, the Government of Canada has two very good resources which come under the heading of Tips for Travelers with Disabilities. One resource is a form titled Carrier Contact for Arranging Accessible Services, and the other one is called A Checklist of Questions. These are resources that you can use when contacting your carrier to plan and book your trip, to make sure that your needs are addressed. I don't have time today to go over the whole list, but here are a couple of the types of questions that they have cited. For example, I can walk for short distances. Another question, how do I arrange to get a wheelchair at the terminal? Can I pre-board, i.e. get on the plane before anybody else? Where will my walker be stored? I will send these checklists to you again. You know how to get me. I'd be happy to send those to you as well. I think those checklists would be very helpful when you're planning a vacation. And now, last but certainly not least, are a few tips that some of our folks have shared with me recently who knew that I was going to be talking about traveling. Book your hotels well in advance and ensure that they put you in an accessible room. These are rooms that have been modified and contain features like grab bars in bathrooms, roll-in showers for those in wheelchairs, and bath seats or bath benches for people who do not use wheelchairs but cannot stand in the shower for any length of time. Call ahead to find out what accessible means to them, as it does not mean the same thing everywhere. Request a room on the ground floor or near an elevator. When traveling by air, request a non-stop flight and an aisle seat near the bathroom. Check in as many bags as possible, but again, be sure to keep all your travel documentation, your medication, etc. with you, as I have previously discussed. Assistive devices such as canes, walkers, and wheelchairs are permitted on planes, but will be stored somewhere for you. So ensure you know where they are and get the name of the person who has stored them for you, and ensure that these things have been properly tagged with your name and all of your contact information. Sorry, I haven't gone anywhere. My throat was just getting dry. Needed to take a sip of water in order to stay hydrated. A certificate written by your doctor for a wheelchair or a scooter may be required. Make sure that you have whatever documentation is necessary. Scooters are often available to rent as well on cruises. Ask in advance whether parts of call require you to have a license for a motorized wheelchair, as you don't want to be stuck wherever you're going because you don't have a proper license for your wheelchair. Take advantage of early boarding options. If traveling by car, be sure to take your disability parking permit with you. Nordic poles and other makes of walking poles, especially the telescoping or folding ones, are very helpful for preventing falls and assisting with your ability to walk a little bit faster in order to keep up with others. Poles also make navigating steep hills possible, but be realistic about what you can and cannot do. Be sure to plan your days in an organized way to make sure that you're using the best use of your on time and your energy. Include rest stops throughout the day and find out where your washrooms are en route before you need them. Have water with you at all times and be sure to stay hydrated. A waist belt with a pouch for a water bottle keeps it handy as well as out of the way when not in use. Pickpockets and thieves of any description try to take advantage of everyone, but those with disabilities are particularly vulnerable. It might be a good idea to wear a purse or a bag, in the case of a gentleman, the kind that go over your head and across your back, so that you have all of your information located at the front of you or right just to the side where thieves can't open your backpack, as I did hear of a story of a lady who traveled recently and thieves tried to take things out of her backpack while she was wearing it. That would have been more difficult had she been wearing one of the over-the-shoulder types of bags that was very close to the front of her and at the side on her hip. Looking for the perfect souvenirs can also be exhausting and time-consuming. Keep your eyes open for a one-stop shop and a good selection of small, light items made in the country you're visiting, or at least not in China, unless, of course, you happen to be visiting China. Research public transit systems before you arrive at your destination. Once again, save you time, energy, and frustration. One last tip from my personal experience is to have a small but powerful flashlight handy, just in case of a power failure. We carry night lights in our accommodation bags as well, because not all accommodations have them. But if the hotel and complete area where you are staying happens to have a power outage, which happened to us on a trip very recently, your flashlight will become your new best friend. Keep in mind, no trip is without some snags and challenges. There are things you cannot change, so don't waste time worrying about them. Plan to the best of your ability, but also be ready to go with the flow. Some of the best travel experiences are the ones you haven't planned for and remain hidden until they appear out of nowhere. So open your eyes and be ready to welcome the unexpected. I would like to thank the individuals who provided some of these last tips. I think they are extremely valuable tips for all of us when it comes to travel. I have received a question regarding U.S. This is a statement actually. U.S. pharmacies need to use a U.S. doctor prescription. We could not get our medication renewed without going to the local hospital. We need to confirm if this is a general rule as well, or just anywhere outside Florida. That's a very good question. This is something that I would definitely check into before you travel. Again, this speaks to the need to ensure that you have lots of extra medication with you, and maybe I could get more information about this statement for the next talk. By the way, that will take place on Tuesday, September the 8th, and I'm going to be addressing balance and falls in that next presentation. So at the beginning of that one, I could get more information about this, the fact that, because I don't want to give you erroneous information about trying to get medications renewed, etc. So if you have information as well from your own doctor about your what prescriptions you need, you may indeed have to go to a U.S. hospital, if that's where you happen to be, or to a hospital in the country in which you are traveling in order to get any medications renewed. That may very well be true, and I'll check out if there's any further tips I can give you about that. Bottom line is, once again, be prepared with lots of medication before you go anywhere, and make sure you take extra. Anyway, happy travels, everyone. For those of you who will be departing for the sunny south sooner rather than later, I wish you a good trip, but hopefully many of you will tune in September to the topic of balance and falls in relation to Parkinson's. Take care, everyone, and bye for now.